the Biden administration not happy with the CDC. According to a new report from Axios, top officials within the White House are growing frustrated, quote, with the lack of internal visibility into the data that is being collected and used for these new mask mandates and things like that. This is the president and his administration are pushing for more vaccine mandates as well. Let's find out more and get the latest from Newsmax White House correspondent Emerald Robinson. Hey, Emerald, so what's going on between the CDC and the White House?
Hi, John. Kind of surprising, right? Because when I asked them for the data to support their policies, particularly Press Secretary Jen Psaki and her Deputy Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, they give such an air of confidence in saying, well, that's because the medical experts tell us that, while never giving me the data. Well, it's interesting because apparently they're asking the very same question I am about the data behind the scenes to the Centers for Disease Control and its director, Rochelle Walensky, but are frustrated that they're not getting answers. They don't understand why the CDC particularly isn't collecting very important data on vaccinated people to see what exactly the breakthrough rate is. In fact, according to Axios, the White House and the CDC both are largely relying on data from the pharmaceutical companies themselves who develop the vaccines, and also from other countries like Israel and Iceland who have a high vaccination rate and much earlier than the United States started vaccinating and are now seeing a swath of breakthrough cases. Now, in addition to that, they continue to make policies based on CDC guidance, and the CDC has largely, up until about last week when they got criticism for doing this, has largely been citing data that it compiled between January and April. So that's quite a while before they reached the vaccination rate that we're at now, and also before this pre-Delta variant that I've asked for data on, and the White House tells me they can't give it. Now, it also comes as are considering a third booster shot for the mRNA vaccines, and also as they're mandating vaccines for the federal government and even now by extension for the White House press corps. In fact, federal employees received an attestation form last Friday where they had to acknowledge that they're providing true information, knowing that false statements could lead to fines and even imprisonment. Now, what is interesting about mandating this for federal employees and warning them that if they lie, there is some concern. I talked to some sources in the federal government. There's concern that people will say they're vaccinated and they're not. But what's interesting about this is that this White House particularly keeps blaming what they say is not enough vaccinations in the United States on conservatives and even conservative media. When you look at the federal government, they have concern within that. About 99% of the federal government is comprised of Democrats, John.
The Biden administration right now, they are working from Delaware, right? They're kind of on a working road trip.
Yeah, they're trying to find out more information on Delta, but the CDC really isn't compelling it in a great way. Also, it's interesting, you have to keep in mind, John, that this was leaked from the White House. This is a purposeful leak. So you're seeing a break between the CDC and the White House, and that they're throwing the CDC and even by extension to a certain degree, Dr. Tony Fauci under the bus as there is pushback on these vaccines, continued mask mandates, especially as Barack Obama has his big party over the weekend where we saw leaked pictures of he and his friends maskless dancing. There's reports, people questioning the exact vaccination level of the people there. And then you had Annie Carney of the New York Times, who's in the White House press poll, suggesting, well, these are sophisticated people, so they know what they're doing. And this leaking from the White House is targeted to try to get some of the focus off of them and some of the backlash off them to and throwing the CDC under the bus.
It is interesting. Yeah, no press briefing today, right? They're working from Delaware, not an opportunity to ask these questions. What do you think about the Obama administration? Some schadenfreude going on. Thanks so much, Emerald. We appreciate it.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.